Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I am showing you an exciting new Chimecho card from the upcoming Sun and Moon 4 Crimson Invasion expansion. Now, one thing that's really interesting about this is we haven't seen a Chimecho in quite a while. Now, I did do a video quite recently, I'll pop a link in the description, about Pokemon who have been ignored, Pokemon for whom we haven't had a new card for some time. Well, the last time we saw Chimecho was in Supreme Victors, which came out on August the 19th, 2009. And given that this is going to be our November set, this means it's been just over 8 years. Fans of this particular Pokemon have been waiting. So, if anyone out there is a particularly big Chimecho fan, and this is the answer to your proverbial prayers, do stick a comment down below. So, is it actually any good? Well, 70 HP is incredibly low. Weakness to Psychic is also low, but, 70 HP. Retreat cost of 1 is about standard, and Psychic is a decent typing to have, because you can hit for weakness against the same kind of Garbodor, Espeon, etc. And as a side note here, 70 HP is actually quite good, because an awful lot of people at the moment are playing Espeon GX, and you play the Energy Evolution Eevee, attach a Psychic Energy, evolve straight up into Espeon and hit for 60 with weakness. So Chimecho having 70 HP will actually mean that you survive with 10 HP remaining. So in this instance, there is a big difference between having 70 and having 60. Retreat cost of 1 is nice because it's quite low, and you attack for 1, you retreat for 1. People are playing Psychic Energy at the moment. They're playing Espeon, they're playing Garbodor, they're playing the Necrozma GX. So, question is this attack any good? And the answer is maybe. Now, the attack here reads 10 damage. During your opponent's next turn, your opponent cannot play Pokemon with abilities from their hand. Okay, so for instance, if your opponent were to use something like a Bridget, that's not playing the Pokemon from their hand, they'd be able to play it down. If they were to use something like a Wally or a Diancie to evolve their bench Pokemon, that would not be playing it from their hand. They cannot bench or manually evolve, including with Rare Candy, a Pokemon that has an ability. Or I should say into a Pokemon that has an ability. Now, one of the obvious things here is Tapu Lele. You cannot play a Tapu Lele from your hand to search for a supporter. And I suppose you could use a Bridget to grab a Tapu Lele, but that would be a little bit silly, given that, you don't get the ability if you use Bridget. That would be stupid. But there are a whole bunch of Pokemon out there, extremely playable Pokemon, that actually have abilities at the moment. Take, for instance, this Decidueye. Now, Decidueye is going to see an awful lot less play with Forest of Giant Plants rotating, but it's still a nice example of a Pokemon that could not be played from the hand when Chimecho attacks. Want a couple more examples? How about Gardevoir GX? That's being a pretty hyped Pokemon. You wouldn't be able to play that if Chimecho attacked. Not only that, but how about Gallade, played in the same deck, has an ability? Octillery that evolves up and then is a really good draw power. Or even Oranguru, although you would be able to use Bridget to search for Oranguru. Or even things like Volcanion you couldn't play from your hand. Now, there's plenty of Pokemon that don't care about this. Something like Golisopod would be fine, Turtonator, Espeon, Garbodor, and that really is the point here. I think maybe Chimecho could be a fun little tech to stop your opponent in certain matchups. I could see this being a one-off in a Garbodor deck, because remember, you've always got cards like Rescue Stretcher that you can use to get Chimecho back. But the other thing I'm thinking here is it really matter? I'll give you an example. Metagross seems like a Pokemon that would be stopped by Chimecho. Metagross has an ability and it's big and powerful, and Metagross will be stopped. Alright. But then, of course, Chimecho's doing 10 energy a turn, although Metagross actually has resistance, and evolves from Metang. Metang also has resistance, so Chimecho will be doing nothing. For free energy, Metang will get a one-hit KO on Chimecho and then can just evolve up into Metagross. You haven't really achieved anything. Take, for instance, I don't know, Gardevoir GX. You can't play a Gardevoir, but you can play a Kirlia. 2 energy, you do 30. Okay, it's a free hit KO for Kirlia to KO Chimecho, but it's an 8-hit KO for Chimecho to KO hit Kirlia. And that, I think, is the major problem with this particular Pokemon. It seems like such a great thing in theory, but it's just not doing much damage. There's not even really much point, attaching a choice band, because then you're hitting for 40. But if your opponent's already benched their Volcanion, benched their Metagross, benched their Decidueye, then you've kind of not done your thing. This is really a turn 1 or 2 Pokemon to hinder the entire setup of your opponent's deck. But then again, there's no point in hindering your opponent's entire setup if they can just half set up and KO you with a stage 1 like Kirlia or Metang. I really do like this attack. It's fun, it's interesting, and it can stop your opponent setting up. And let's face it, maybe there's a situation where you stop your opponent setting up just for a couple of turns, you set up beautifully, and then you end them, and then maybe your opponent has nothing and you've got a great setup and they've just got a bunch of stage 1s. You can use Chimecho to buy time, but all you're ever going to be able to do here is buy yourself a couple of turns, and that really is it. So I'm going to give Chimecho 2 Wassies. Not a bad card, but I fear it's a little bit underpowered. If there was a Pokemon that had this same effect, but did 50 or 60 damage, then, ladies and gentlemen, we would be talking. Speaking of talking, let's have a conversation. Chuck down in the comment section. Say hello. Be nice. Go nuts. You know the deal by now. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. That's where live action is. And if you want to support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, get some bonus pods, etc. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.